The checkout line froze when two men burst into laughter, pointing at an elderly woman fumbling for change. Their voices dripped with cruelty. "Hurry up, Grandma, some of us got lives." But before she could answer, the deep thunder of motorcycles rolled into the parking lot. Before we start this story, tell us, where in the world are you watching this from? And if you enjoy our stories, please like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss another story of human and bikers' kindness. Evelyn Moore wasn't fragile. At 72, her hands had raised children, tilled gardens, and stitched quilts that lasted generations. Still, life in Cheyenne had grown lonelier. Her husband had passed, her children scattered. The weekly trip to the grocery store was her ritual, a way to stay connected, to remind herself she was still part of the world. She carried her old fabric shopping bag, the same one she'd used for 20 years. Her steps were slow, her posture stooped, but her eyes still held fire. Evelyn didn't need pity. She needed respect. That Thursday afternoon, the store buzzed with chatter. Families stocked up, ranchers grabbed supplies, and teens milled about, glued to their phones. Evelyn moved patiently, filling her basket with flour, tea, and apples. She never bought much, her pension stretched thin. At checkout, she fumbled with coins, her fingers trembling slightly. That was when Trevor Pike and Kyle Mercer, loud-mouthed and restless, decided she would be their entertainment. Trevor elbowed Kyle, nodding toward Evelyn as she counted coins with deliberate care. "Look at her. Taking all day just for groceries." Kyle snickered. "Bet she thinks nickels are still worth something." Their laughter cut through the line, heads turning, some amused, others uneasy. Evelyn's cheeks warmed, but she refused to look down. Her father had taught her long ago, never let mockery steal your dignity. She kept counting, her voice steady as she told the cashier, "One moment, dear." Maya Torres, the young cashier, bit her lip. She wanted to defend Evelyn but hesitated. Trevor and Kyle were known for stirring trouble. They leaned closer, mocking her every move. "Need a magnifying glass, Grandma?" The people in line shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. Silence could be as cruel as laughter. Evelyn lifted her chin. "Respect doesn't cost a cent, shame you can't afford it." Her words drew gasps. But Trevor's smirk widened, eager for more. He didn't notice the faint vibration beneath the tiled floor, like a storm approaching. Outside, faint at first but growing, came the unmistakable roar of engines. The sound spilled through automatic doors, rattling windows, sending a shiver through the air. Harleys. Many of them. Trevor paused mid-taunt, glancing toward the entrance. "What the hell is that?" Evelyn's lips curved in the faintest smile. She knew that sound. Years ago, her late husband had ridden, and she had memorized the rhythm of freedom on two wheels. The line of engines grew louder. Customers craned their necks toward the parking lot. 50 black and chrome bikes pulled in, rumbling like thunderclouds over Wyoming plains. At their head rode Brick Lawson, broad as a mountain, beard streaked with gray, his Hell's Angels patch stitched proud across his back. The engines silenced in unison. Riders dismounted, boots hitting pavement. The store seemed to hold its breath. Trevor swallowed hard. His smirk faltered. And Evelyn, with quiet dignity, continued placing her apples on the belt. She didn't need to speak. Her answer was rolling in. The automatic doors hissed open. Boots struck linoleum, steady, unhurried. One by one, leather vests filed inside, filling the grocery aisles with a presence heavier than words. Brick Lawson stopped first, eyes sweeping the scene. He didn't need to ask what was happening, he could read it in Evelyn's steady posture, Trevor's guilty sneer, and the silence of onlookers. "Ma'am," Brick said, tipping his head slightly to Evelyn. "You need a hand?" Evelyn smiled faintly. "No, thank you. I've got all the help I need." Trevor scoffed, masking nerves. "What, you bikers here for bingo night?" His laugh was brittle, echoing wrong in the charged air. Brick stepped closer, his shadow swallowing Trevor's. "We're here for respect. Something you lost when you opened your mouth." The line stayed frozen. The cash registers beeped quietly, the only sound besides leather creaking and hearts pounding. For once, the loudest men in the room had nothing left to say. Maya, the cashier, found her courage. These men were mocking her, holding up the line. Gasps rippled. Brick's eyes didn't leave Trevor and Kyle. "That true?" Neither answered. Their cocky grins had drained away. Evelyn gathered her coins, her voice calm. "They think age is weakness. But I've buried stronger men than them." The angels chuckled softly, not mocking but approving. Trevor's fists clenched, but he didn't move. Kyle shifted nervously, muttering, "We were just kidding." Brick's tone dropped lower, quiet but cutting. "Respect isn't a joke. Especially not here." The riders behind him spread across the line, filling the space with silent authority. Customers straightened, emboldened by their presence. Trevor tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "This ain't your business." Brick leaned closer, his voice like gravel. "When someone mocks a grandmother, it's every decent man's business." And with 50 angels behind him, no one in that store doubted it. The grocery line had turned into a silent arena. Trevor forced a smirk, but his laugh sounded hollow. "You think a bunch of old bikers scare me?" Brick didn't blink. "If you were scared, you wouldn't still be talking. But respect ain't about fear. It's about knowing when to shut your mouth." The angels behind him spread casually across the checkout lanes, their presence filling the room like an unspoken warning. Kyle shifted uncomfortably. "Come on, Trev. Let's just go." But Trevor was stubborn. She was holding everyone up. "I just said what everyone was thinking." Evelyn turned her head toward him, her voice steady. "No, you said what cowards say when they think no one will stand against them." Her words, sharper than any blade, drew murmurs from the line. Even children stared wide-eyed, sensing something sacred unfolding. Brick's lips twitched, almost a smile. Evelyn didn't need 50 angels. But she had them all the same. Trevor's bravado cracked. He puffed his chest, trying to reclaim control. "What, you people worship her or something?" Cole Maddox, one of the riders, stepped forward. His beard framed a hard jaw, his voice gravel. "We don't worship her. We respect her. Big difference." Trevor scoffed, but no one laughed with him. Even Kyle looked pale, realizing the crowd wasn't on their side anymore. Maya spoke up from behind the register, her voice trembling but firm. "She comes here every week. She never complains. She treats everyone kindly. She's worth more than you two ever will be." Evelyn reached over, touching Maya's hand gently. "Thank you, dear." Brick turned his gaze back to Trevor. "See that? Even the young know respect. Maybe you'll learn it the hard way." The silence deepened, the tension stretched thin. And then, outside, more engines growled to life. The first rehook hit, the angels hadn't all arrived yet. More were coming. Through the glass doors, chrome gleamed under Wyoming's wide sky. Another wave of Harleys rolled into the lot, headlights cutting the afternoon glare. Customers pressed against windows, whispering in awe. Trevor's smirk disappeared completely. His bravado shrank with every rumble of an engine. Brick glanced toward the entrance, then back at Trevor. Looks like the rest of the family showed up. The automatic doors slid open. Riders stepped inside, their formation tight, their presence overwhelming. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their silence was thunder. Evelyn straightened, adjusting the strap of her bag. She wasn't intimidated. She was honored. The world had told her she was small, invisible. Now 50 men stood to remind her she was not. Trevor muttered, "This is insane. All this over some old lady?" Brick's stare cut him cold. "Watch your words. She's not some old lady. She's Evelyn. And you'll remember her name." The standoff grew heavier, the kind of silence where even breaths felt loud. Trevor's shoulders sagged, his arrogance faltering. Kyle whispered urgently, "Trev, we need to go. Now." But Trevor was cornered by his own pride. "What if I don't? What are you gonna do? Beat me up?" Brick shook his head slowly. "We don't need to touch you. We already won." Confusion flickered across Trevor's face. Brick continued, "Look around. Nobody here respects you. Every person saw you mock a grandmother. You'll carry that shame longer than any bruise." The crowd murmured agreement, nodding, whispering. Trevor's ears burned as realization sank in. Evelyn spoke gently, almost kindly. "You could have chosen kindness today. You chose cruelty instead. That's on you." Her words cut deeper than fists ever could. Trevor's mouth opened, then shut. He had no answer. And for the first time, Evelyn felt the weight lift, not because she shouted, but because truth had silenced him. Brick placed a firm hand on Trevor's shoulder, not aggressive, just immovable. "You want to stay in this town? You'll learn the rules. And rule number 1, you respect your elders." Trevor tried to shrug him off, but Brick's grip was unyielding. Kyle tugged at his friend's sleeve. "Come on, man. Let's just leave before this gets worse." Trevor finally broke, muttering curses under his breath as he stormed toward the exit. Kyle followed quickly, avoiding everyone's eyes. The angels didn't jeer, didn't gloat. They simply stood in silence, creating a path for the Loudmouths to leave. As the doors slid shut behind them, relief swept through the store. The tension melted into quiet applause. Maya clapped softly at her register, joined by customers who had watched the scene unfold. Evelyn gathered her groceries, dignity intact. She turned to Brick with a soft smile. "Thank you." Brick shook his head. "No, ma'am. Thank you for reminding us what respect looks like." The angels spread across the aisles like a living wall, not blocking customers, but holding the space steady. Their silence was louder than any threat. Evelyn stood with her bag at her side, chin lifted. She didn't cower. She didn't need to. For once, the world around her was standing tall with her. Trevor lingered just outside the door, his pride too stubborn to let him retreat fully. He shouted back, voice cracking. "You can't babysit her forever. Next time she's on her own." Brick turned toward him, his gravel voice calm but cutting. "Respect isn't something you give when watched. It's something you carry every day. If you don't learn that, son, you'll find yourself very alone." The words landed harder than fists. Even Kyle, shifting nervously, nodded as if he understood. Trevor scowled but said nothing more. And inside, the tension gave way to something powerful, a community remembering where its backbone lay. Maya stepped from behind the register, her voice unsteady but loud enough to carry. "I should have said something sooner. Evelyn shouldn't have stood here alone. Evelyn turned her head toward her, eyes soft. You spoke now. That's what matters. Customers nodded, murmuring. It was as if Brick's presence had unlocked something in them. Silence, once safety, now felt like shame. A rancher in line added, "We've all let loudmouths run their mouths too long." Brick folded his arms. Then let today be the last time. Respect your elders. Respect your neighbors. Or don't call yourself part of this town. The angels nodded behind him, a silent chorus. The crowd applauded, not for intimidation, but for clarity. For years, people had watched cruelty in silence. Today, they realized silence was no longer enough. Trevor's mockery had started this. But Evelyn's dignity, and the angel's loyalty, had turned it into something greater. Evelyn's groceries were bagged, her coins tucked carefully away. She stepped forward slowly, cane tapping against the floor. But when she reached the doors, she paused. Turning back, her voice rang clear. Age is not weakness. It is survival. And those who mock it will never understand its worth. The store fell silent. Her words, simple yet strong, carried further than any lecture. Maya wiped tears from her eyes. Even hardened bikers shifted with respect. Brick inclined his head. Well said, ma'am. Trevor, still lingering in the lot, heard every word. His face burned red. The jeers he thought would win him laughter had won him nothing but shame. And the second climax struck. Evelyn, once mocked, now commanded the room with her voice alone. She stepped into the sunlight, flanked by riders who treated her not as frail, but as honored. Trevor couldn't follow her there. The roar of engines followed Evelyn as the angels escorted her home. 50 bikes stretched like a steel river down Cheyenne's main road. Windows opened, children waved, and townsfolk stared in awe at the unlikely parade. Evelyn rode in the passenger seat of Brick's truck, groceries in her lap, heart swelling. For once, she wasn't invisible. She was celebrated. Neighbors stepped onto porches, whispering, "What's happening?" Someone answered, "They're guarding Evelyn Moore." The second rehook hit, not just bikers protecting a grandmother, but an entire town witnessing the meaning of respect in motion. Trevor, watching from the shadows, realized too late, he hadn't humiliated her. He had made her unforgettable. Brick's voice carried over the roar as they neared her street. From today, ma'am, you don't walk this town alone. Not ever. Tears stung Evelyn's eyes, but her smile was steady. For the first time in years, she felt untouchable. That evening, the riders parked their bikes in a line outside Evelyn's modest home. Engines cooled, but loyalty burned warm. She stepped out, groceries in hand, as Brick walked her to the door. Neighbors peeked from curtains, astonished. The sight of leather and chrome protecting silver hair would be retold for years. Evelyn turned, her voice soft but strong. "I thought I was alone. But you reminded me I still belong." Brick nodded, eyes glinting beneath the porch light. "You remind us why we ride. Loyalty. Respect. Family." He handed her a small patch, not the full colors, but a token stitched with one word, honor. Her hands trembled as she accepted it. The angel saluted silently before remounting, engines roaring to life once more. Evelyn stood at her doorway, patch clutched to her chest. Tonight, she wasn't just a grandmother mocked in line. She was Evelyn Moore, respected, remembered, and defended. The story spread through Cheyenne overnight. By morning, the local paper ran the headline, "Grandmother escorted home by 50 Hell's Angels." Photos of the riders lined up outside Evelyn's house went viral. Strangers who had never met her now spoke her name with reverence. Evelyn sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea, patch of honor pinned to her shopping bag. For decades she had felt forgotten, just another widow fading into the background. Now, she had become a symbol. When a reporter asked for comment, Evelyn's words were simple. I didn't ask for bikers. I didn't ask for applause. All I wanted was respect. And that belongs to every person, young or old. Brick Lawson clipped the article, tucking it into his vest. She gave this town more backbone than we ever could, he told his brothers. The loudmouths who mocked her had vanished into shame. But Evelyn remained, quiet, proud, and stronger than ever. The following week, Evelyn returned to the same grocery store. She walked with her cane, bag over her shoulder, steps slower than most but steady as ever. This time, no one mocked. A teenager rushed to hold the door. A mother offered her place in line. Maya beamed from behind the register. Welcome back, Mrs. Moore. Evelyn smiled, her voice warm. It's good to be back. Brick and a few angels lingered outside, engines idling like a silent guard. They didn't need to step in. The community had already shifted. When Evelyn paid, the manager insisted on carrying her groceries to the car. She chuckled. I'm not fragile, you know. He grinned sheepishly. Not fragile. Respected. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt the truth of those words. Respect wasn't just a gift from bikers, it had become the town's habit. One afternoon, Evelyn received a knock at her door. It was Maya, clutching a notebook. I'm writing a piece for school, she said shyly. About courage. Could I interview you? Evelyn welcomed her in, pouring tea. Maya's questions were simple. What did you feel? Were you afraid? Evelyn smiled gently. Of course I was afraid. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing anyway. And sometimes, courage comes when others stand with you. Maya scribbled furiously, her eyes shining. That's beautiful. When she left, Evelyn closed her door and leaned against it. For years, she had doubted her worth. Now, her story was teaching others. On her mantle, the patch of honor gleamed beside her husband's photo. She touched it softly. You'd be proud, she whispered. Outside, a Harley passed on the street, its rumble like an old friend's voice. Evelyn no longer feared fading into silence. Weeks later, the Hells Angels invited Evelyn to their clubhouse for a gathering. She hesitated, unsure, but Brick insisted. Your family now. Inside, the atmosphere was nothing like the rumors. Laughter filled the air, the smell of barbecue thick, the walls lined with decades of photographs. They presented Evelyn with a framed picture, her standing at the grocery store, surrounded by 50 riders, her chin lifted defiantly. Beneath it, one word was engraved, respect. Tears blurred her vision. She traced the frame with trembling hands. I never thought I'd matter like this again. Brick rested a hand on her shoulder. You always mattered. The world just needed reminding. The angels raised their glasses. To Evelyn. The cheer shook the walls, but Evelyn only laughed, a sound she hadn't let free in years. For once, her life wasn't defined by loneliness. It was defined by loyalty. On a quiet Sunday morning, Evelyn walked through her neighborhood, cane tapping rhythmically. Neighbors waved, children ran to greet her, and even strangers nodded respectfully. She paused at the corner, hearing the distant roar of engines. A smile spread across her face. She knew they were out there, not guarding her, but reminding the world that dignity mattered. She adjusted the strap of her bag, the patch of honor stitched proudly into the fabric. It wasn't just cloth. It was proof that even in a world quick to mock, respect still roared louder. Sometimes heroes don't come in uniforms. Sometimes they arrive on Harleys, not to fight, but to stand for what's right. Evelyn's story proves dignity is ageless, and respect is the road we all must share.